People say marriage is hard work, and I believe that every single word. I was willing to put in the effort. I married Maya 5 years ago, and for a while, everything felt right. She was smart, charismatic, emotionally intelligent, and above all, she made me feel like I was finally safe. That's what trust feels like, security wrapped in love. But over time, things changed. The first few years were smooth. We traveled, worked hard, supported each other through career stress, and even talked about starting a family. But around year 3, the tone of our relationship began to shift. Conversations became shorter. Her laughs less frequent. She started sleeping on the far edge of the bed, saying she was just tired from work. I thought it was a phase. I told myself every marriage has its quiet spells. Then one evening, over dinner, Maya looked at me with unusually serious eyes and said, "I think we need therapy." I felt a knot tighten in my stomach. Therapy? Were we really at that point? But she was calm about it, said it was preventative, like going to gym for the relationship before it got sick. She said she wanted to grow, to understand herself better, and that this could help us reconnect. She framed it so well, I couldn't disagree. In fact, I respected her initiative. I agreed instantly. That was the beginning of the illusion. At first, she invited me to join her sessions. I attended too. They were mostly focused on opening up emotionally, which felt like a one-sided dissection of my flaws. I was told I was emotionally unavailable, too logical, and that I needed to create more space for her. So I tried. I backed off when she asked. I supported her boundaries. I gave her the space she said she needed to heal. After the second session, Maya said it might be better if she went alone for a while. I need individual time to figure myself out first, she explained. I agreed again, not wanting to interfere with her healing process. That's when the real distance began. She started coming home late after therapy. I stayed for journaling, she'd say. Or he suggested I sit with my emotions in a safe space before facing home. She started dressing differently, more fitted clothes, makeup on days she wasn't going anywhere else. She said it made her feel empowered. She smiled less at home, but more at her phone. And if I asked her anything about the sessions, she'd say I was being invasive and not respecting the therapeutic boundary. I didn't want to be the insecure husband who resents his wife for growing. So I kept quiet. I trusted the process. I trusted her. But therapy was no longer a tool for healing. It had become a wall, one that kept me out while she built another world behind it. She wasn't healing our marriage. She was burying it. And I had no idea just how deep the lies went until I found out who'd been helping her heal all along. When you love someone deeply, your instincts don't shout, they whisper. That whisper started the third week Maya came home late from therapy. She was usually back by 7:30 p.m., but now she was walking around 9. Her excuse? We're doing longer sessions now. Sometimes I journal or sit in silence after. It's all part of the process. I nodded, but the next week, she came home even later, closer to 10:15. Her makeup still fresh, perfume lingering in the air. I stopped for tea on the way back, she said. Needed to decompress. Her phone was always face down, always locked, and her mood alternated between unnaturally cheerful and completely distant. Still, I reminded myself, don't assume the worst. She's doing the work. Trust her. But then came the shift in language. Maya started talking in therapist speak. Words like boundaries, emotional autonomy, and exploration became common in her vocabulary. Harmless words, sure, but they were often used to shut down our conversations. If I asked a question about how she was feeling, she'd say, "Don't pressure me. I'm processing." If I wanted to talk about how distant she'd become, she'd call me defensive. Once, when I told her I missed her, she said, "You're projecting your emotional insecurity onto me. Maybe you should talk to someone, too." That sentence didn't just hurt. It invalidated everything I was trying to say. I wasn't being heard. I was being pathologized. Around this time, her phone became her second home. Always in her hand. Always locked. She'd never let me near it. Not even for something innocent like checking the weather. She'd change her lock screen. turned off notifications, and started taking calls in the other room. Work stuff, she'd say. But Maya worked as a freelance writer. Most of her work was remote. Who was calling her at 10:45 p.m. for edits? Still, I tried to keep believing her. I started doing something I hated, checking small details. She told me her therapy appointments were on Mondays and Thursdays. So one Thursday, I waited until she left, then called a therapist's office and asked if I could book an appointment. Claimed I was a referral from my wife. The receptionist paused. Sorry, he doesn't work Thursdays. Only Monday, Tuesday, and Saturday. I felt the blood drain from my face. I didn't confront her. Not yet. I needed to be sure I wasn't becoming paranoid. But that whisper in my head had grown louder. She's lying to you. Then one night, Maya came home smiling. Too much, like she'd just come from a date. I watched her walk past me, humming a song under her breath. Her phone buzzed. She didn't even check. She just grinned and walked upstairs. I waited until she was in the shower. I picked up her phone, trying my best to justify it to myself. You just want the truth. You deserve the truth. It was locked. But I noticed something strange. A second messaging app one didn't recognize before. Signal. A privacy-based encrypted messenger. She'd never mentioned using it. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't therapy. This was betrayal in disguise. I didn't confront her right away. Not yet. I was hurt. Deeply. But I needed to see it clearly before I acted. I needed proof, not just pain. I started paying attention, watching, recording. And with each passing day, one thing became devastatingly clear. The person she was healing with wasn't a therapist. And what they were doing wasn't healing. It was time to pull the curtain back on the performance. But I wouldn't scream or beg. I'd do it quietly, coldly, just like she did. It's a strange thing, that moment when suspicion transforms into certainty. It doesn't feel like a punch in the gut. It's quieter, heavier, like drowning in still water. Once I saw the encrypted messaging app on Maya's phone, Signal, everything began to unravel faster than I prepared for. The phone itself stayed locked, and I wasn't about to force it open or steal her password. I wasn't going to be the villain in a story I didn't create. I needed something solid, something undeniable. So I hired someone. A friend of mine, Paul, worked in private security. He'd done some freelance PI work before and owed me a favor. I told him just the facts, no emotional rants, no dramatics. Just what I'd observed, the late nights, the so-called therapy, the unlicensed therapist, the second messaging app, the lies. Paul agreed to tail her discreetly. I didn't expect results fast. I thought it would take weeks, maybe months, but it took just 4 days. For days, for everything I believed in to collapse. On the 4th evening, Maya left around 6:30 p.m., saying she was heading to therapy. I acted like everything was fine, kissed her on the cheek, said, "Take your time, love." That night, Paul called me at 9:15 p.m. His voice was low and firm. "She's not at any clinic. She's at the Hilton downtown. Room 423. She's not alone." I didn't speak. I couldn't. It was like my throat sealed itself shut. He added, "I've got photos. Video. You need to come see this yourself." I wanted to. God, I wanted to burst into that hotel room and demand answers. But no, that would be impulsive. Emotional. Exactly the thing she'd expect from a man not in control of his emotions. So I said no. "I trust you," I told Paul. "Just document it. Everything." He did. The next morning, I didn't sleep. I sat on the couch, silent, eyes on the door, waiting for her to come home, like I was hosting a ghost. When she walked in, makeup smudged and hair slightly damp, she looked surprised to see me awake. "Hey," she said casually, "didn't think you'd still be up." I looked at her for a long moment. "Did therapy go well?" She blinked, then smiled slightly. "Yeah, it was intense. I think I had a breakthrough." Breakthrough? The audacity made me sick. I nodded, letting her think I was still buying it. "Glad to hear that. Let's talk later, yeah?" "Sure," she said, already scrolling through her phone. That was the last time she smiled at me. Later that day, Paul delivered everything. Time-stamped photos, video stills, and proof that the therapist she'd been seeing was not only unlicensed, but not even a therapist. His name was Derek, a wellness blogger who ran emotional clarity workshops and offered one-on-one healing intimacy coaching. No degree, no credentials, just a charming smile and enough new age buzzwords to fool the emotionally vulnerable. And Maya had fallen for it. Or maybe she just wanted an excuse to cheat. I confronted her that night. She came out of the shower, wrapped in a towel, humming to herself like nothing was wrong. I was sitting at the dining table with the envelope in front of me. "What's that?" she asked, towel drying her hair. "Truth," I said quietly. "Would you like to see it?" She looked confused, then cautious. "What are you talking about?" I slid the photos across the table. Images of her walking into the Hilton, hand in hand with Derek. A shot of the room door closing. A time-stamp receipt showing a 2-hour room rental. Her face turned pale. She didn't speak. When she finally did, it was with a pathetic gasp of denial. "You spied on me? You invaded my privacy." "No," I said calmly. "I defended my reality. Because you manipulated it." She started crying. Of course. Not because she was sorry, but because she was caught. Then came the lies. "It's not what you think." He helps me process emotional trauma through physical connection. It's not cheating. You don't understand the kind of growth I'm going through. Each excuse more nauseating than the last. "You weaponized therapy," I said quietly. "You hijacked the language of healing to justify betrayal. That's not growth, Maya. That's narcissism with a diploma." That one hit her. She sat down. Hard. The tears were real now, but it was too late for tears. "I didn't mean to hurt you," she whispered. "No," I said. "You just didn't care if you did." That night, I didn't sleep in our bed. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg for answers. I started planning, not just for a divorce, but for the truth to come out. Because if she was going to play the healing victim card, then I was going to be the man who ripped that mask off and showed everyone what really lived underneath. There's a moment after betrayal, once the storm has passed, where clarity begins to settle in. You're no longer drowning in disbelief or rage. You're breathing again. But every breath carries a sharp edge. That's where I was. Cold, calculated, silent. After exposing Maya's affair, I didn't raise my voice. I didn't argue. I became still, terrifyingly still. She mistook my silence for surrender. What she didn't realize was that I was planning, not revenge for revenge's sake. No, this wasn't about anger anymore. It was about justice, about giving her a taste of the damage she tried to bury under the word growth. She had used the language of therapy to control the narrative, to make me seem like the emotionally stunted one, the obstacle to her healing journey. I had no intention of confronting her again. I wanted the truth to speak for itself. So, step 1, documentation. Everything Paul had gathered, photos, videos, time-stamped evidence. I organized it neatly, labeled folders, backups in the cloud. I even added screenshots from her text messages I managed to access while she slept. Turns out she used the same password for her laptop and phone. Classic narcissist mistake. The messages between her and Derek were beyond explicit, emotional, romantic, manipulative. I read one where she said, "He's too logical to understand my heart. You get me in ways he never could." That was enough. Step 2, financial protection. Before she could gut me in divorce court or spin the narrative to make me look abusive or controlling, I met with a lawyer, a damn good one. I shared everything. The affair, the fake therapy, her misappropriation of joint funds. She had used our savings for weekend wellness retreats with Derek. We froze joint accounts and secured my personal assets. Then I quietly updated the beneficiary details on everything in my name. Well, insurance, retirement. Maya had no idea. She was too busy pretending things could be salvaged. Step 3, social reality check. Maya had built a reputation online as a relationship growth coach. Ironic, given how she burned her own. She had a decent following. 2, she posted curated photos of our life. Smiling date nights, sunset hikes, loving captions that now made me physically ill to reread. So I crafted a post. Not angry, not dramatic, just honest. Healing is not a disguise for deception. Therapy is not a shield for betrayal. For anyone following our journey, I want to be transparent. The person I trusted weaponized self-growth to justify infidelity. She had an affair with a man she called her therapist, who wasn't even licensed. This isn't bitterness. This is truth. I attached no names, no photos, just words, clean and controlled. The post went viral within our circle. People connected the dots quickly. Comments started pouring in. Support, shock. A few tried to defend her, but those didn't last long. Some of her growth coach sponsors dropped her within days. She lost partnerships, credibility, and more importantly, control of the story. And still, I said nothing to her directly. Step 4, the final setup. I planned my exit the way one plans a long con, slow, invisible, and thorough. I rented a temporary apartment, started moving important items there piece by piece, laptop, documents, sentimental things. Then one day while she was at therapy, I packed the rest. When she came back, the apartment was half empty. I left a sealed envelope on the kitchen counter, neatly written in my handwriting. You wanted space to grow. Now you have all the space you need. Attached was a copy of the evidence file and divorce papers. I didn't need a dramatic exit. I just needed closure on my terms. She called me that night, dozens of times. I didn't answer. She messaged me saying, "You didn't have to destroy me like this." But I didn't destroy her. She did that all by herself. All I did was hold up a mirror. Some people fight fire with fire. I chose something far more destructive, truth, because lies are fragile. They look strong when nurtured in secret. But the moment they're exposed to light, they burn fast and loud, taking everything with them. Maya never expected the truth to be used against her, because she never really believed she'd be caught. She was too confident in her image. The thoughtful, self-aware woman on a healing journey, who painted me as a cold, emotionally unavailable husband. She believed she controlled the story like she had controlled the marriage for the past 2 years. But control is an illusion. And the truth? The truth doesn't need permission to tear someone apart. Step 1, the quiet leak. I started with subtle, irreversible damage. Remember that Instagram post I made? The one without names, without rage? It gained traction. My circle started asking questions. Her followers noticed she'd suddenly gone silent. Some even messaged me privately, sharing their own stories. Friends who'd been burned by her manipulative coaching tactics. Women who'd paid hundreds for emotional expansion, sessions that felt more like therapy cosplay. They thanked me for being honest. Then the leak widened. I created an anonymous Medium article under a pseudonym. It told our story in detail. How therapy became a disguise for infidelity. How an unlicensed man posing as a growth guide preyed on emotionally vulnerable women. And how one man decided not to scream, but to expose the rot beneath the spiritual facade. It wasn't a rant. It was articulate, factual, and painful. And it exploded. In days, it had thousands of reads, shares, comments. Journalists began reaching out through the anonymous contact form. A small independent blog ran a piece about the dark side of influencer therapy. That was the crack. And the cracks kept widening. Step 2, taking the mask off. Maya tried damage control. Of course. She posted a soft-lit video, sitting in front of a stack of self-help books with her voice trembling. Healing is messy. Sometimes we hurt people unintentionally while trying to find ourselves. The comments weren't buying it. Dozens asked about Derek. Others brought up the Medium article. Some questioned her credentials. One particularly damning comment said, "Funny how your growth require hotel rooms and secrecy. That's not healing. That's just cheating dressed in yoga pants." She disabled the comments a few hours later, then deleted the video. But it was too late. Truth had done its job. Step 3, legal moves. When the divorce proceedings began, my lawyer was ready. We presented everything. The financial records, evidence of her misusing joint funds for therapy sessions with her lover, Proof that Derek was not a licensed therapist and that Maya had publicly marketed herself as a relationship coach without any actual credentials or formal education. The court wasn't kind to her. Her legal team tried to paint me as cold, emotionally unavailable, the same narrative she'd used for months. But facts are stronger than feelings in court, and the facts were stacked against her like bricks. I walked away with most of our assets, sole ownership of our home, and a restraining order against Derek after he showed up at my apartment in a pathetic attempt to explain everything. I didn't let him speak. The police did. Step 4, the collapse. Maya lost nearly everything she'd built. Her coaching business fell apart. Sponsors pulled back. Clients demanded refunds. One even filed a lawsuit against her for emotional manipulation and fraud. I didn't know the details. I didn't need to. The truth was now doing what I no longer had to. Friends we once shared quietly cut ties with her. Her family, especially her father, a quiet and principled man, called me to apologize. I raised her better, he said over the phone. I know you did, I replied. She lost something good. She destroyed it. I corrected. No one loses what they actively burn. Step 5, healing on my terms. Revenge is not about pain. Not real revenge. It's not loud or violent. It doesn't scream or kick down doors. It walks in quietly and rearranges the furniture while you're sleeping. And when you wake up, nothing is where it used to be. That's what I gave her. She couldn't blame me publicly because she'd already been exposed. She couldn't run to Derek because he ran first once the lawsuits and internet backlash hit. She couldn't rebuild because she'd built her image on lies. And me, I didn't just survive. I thrived. I went to therapy, real therapy. I told my story. I processed the humiliation, the gaslighting, the hollow nights of pretending I didn't feel what I knew deep down. I began rebuilding, not just a life without her, but a version of myself I had forgotten, stronger, sharper, more whole, and free. The phone call. Months later, Maya called me. It was late at night. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. Her voice was shaky. I needed to say I'm sorry. I didn't respond right away. She continued, You didn't deserve what I did to you. I thought I was finding myself, but I was just destroying everything. Why are you really calling, Maya? I asked. A pause. Then, because no one believed me anymore. You took that from me. I laughed softly, not out of cruelty, but out of finality. I didn't take it, I said. I just stopped protecting it. It wasn't during a screaming match or in front of lawyers, or even in some dramatic, rainy scene like in the movies. It happened at a coffee shop, a quiet Tuesday afternoon. I was sitting near the window, reading, when I saw her walk in, hesitant, shoulders hunched, no makeup, no glowing presence. Just a woman carrying the weight of every bad decision she'd ever made. Maya spotted me and froze. For a second, I thought she'd leave, but she didn't. She approached, voice barely above a whisper. Can I sit? I stared at her. The woman I once loved. The woman who twisted therapy into a weapon. Who burned my trust like it was kindling for her self-discovery bonfire. But I wasn't angry anymore. Not even bitter. Just clear. I nodded once. 5 minutes. She sat, visibly nervous. Her hands trembled as she stirred a coffee she didn't order. She met my eyes. I don't know how to fix any of it, she began, her voice strained. I ruined everything. I know that now. I stayed silent. I thought I was doing what was right for me, that I was growing, healing, but the truth is, I was just running away. From you, from responsibility, from reality. Still, I said nothing. I wanted to see where this would go. I lied to everyone. To myself, too. Derek wasn't who I thought he was. He's gone. Disappeared after everything came out. I tried to reach out, but she shook her head. He used me, too. There it was, the flicker of realization. Not enough to earn forgiveness, but enough to prove that truth, in the end, had done its work. I've lost my career, my audience, friends. My dad won't return my calls. She glanced up at me finally. But losing you, that's what broke me. I let out a slow breath. You didn't lose me, Maya. You gave me away. She looked down. Tears threatened, but I didn't offer comfort. I missed the way you made me feel safe. Scene, I never appreciated it. I thought you were holding me back. But you were the only person who ever truly stood by me. You didn't want a partner, I said quietly. You wanted an audience. That hit her. She flinched as if I'd slapped her. I came today not to ask for forgiveness. I know I don't deserve it. I just want to say, you were right about everything. I nodded. I know. She blinked in surprise at my calm. Why aren't you yelling? Why don't you hate me? I met her eyes for the first time. Because I healed, Maya. Really healed. And I realized something important. What's that? You're not my responsibility anymore. Your guilt, your regret, your loneliness, none of that belongs to me. It never did. She looked down again, lips quivering. I just wanted you to know I'm sorry. I do. And I meant it, not because I forgave her, not because I wanted her back, but because holding on to the anger would have tied me to her forever. And she no longer deserved that power. I stood up, ready to leave. She looked up, panic flashing in her eyes. Will I ever earn a second chance? I paused. No, but I hope you earn peace. And with that, I walked out. No yelling, no final blow. Just truth, quiet, heavy, and final. They say time heals all wounds. I disagree. Time only gives you distance. Truth is what heals. In the months that followed the final conversation with Maya, I didn't rush to move on. I didn't jump into new relationships or post motivational quotes about bouncing back. I sat with the wreckage, mine and hers, and I chose to rebuild with care, not speed. I traveled, not far, but far enough. I visited a small coastal town where no one knew my name. I walked along quiet shores. I learned how to be alone without feeling lonely. I kept going to therapy, real therapy this time. No agenda, no spin, just honesty. My therapist didn't tell me how to get revenge or how to take my power back. She helped me ask better questions. Why did I ignore the early signs? Why did I shrink myself to maintain peace? Why did I equate silence with strength? The answers weren't comfortable, but they were mine. I started writing again, something I hadn't done since college. Pages filled with raw truth, no filters, just thoughts, pain, clarity. That anonymous blog I once used to expose Maya's deceit, I turned it into a platform for men like me, those who've been betrayed, gaslit, and made to feel weak for hurting. The response was overwhelming. Not because people love drama, but because people crave truth. Real, unfiltered, inconvenient truth. Maya eventually faded into the background. I heard she move away, deleted her accounts, tried to start over somewhere else. That's her story now. I no longer need to follow it. Some nights, I still think about how things could have gone differently. Not out of regret, but reflection. Love, real love, deserved better than the grave it was buried in. But I also know now, truth doesn't destroy love. Lies do. And the moment I stopped protecting lies, I gave truth permission to set me free. Not to punish, not to hurt, but to liberate. Today, I live lighter. Not because everything is perfect, but because I'm no longer carrying the weight of someone else's dishonesty. I don't look over my shoulder. I don't rehearse arguments in my head. I don't need to prove anything to anyone. And that's real peace. Not the kind Maya chased in her pseudo-spiritual rabbit hole. The kind you earn when you stop hiding. When you stop protecting what was never yours to carry. When you finally tell the truth, to others, yes, but mostly to yourself. She used therapy to cheat. I used truth to heal. And in the end, truth was always the most powerful weapon of all.